Of all the bikes in Harley's past to choose an icon model from, they choose this. What is Harley Davidson thinking?
Harley Davidson recently announced their limited run Icon Edition bike for 2022. It's called the El Diablo, and it's a Softail FXRST presented in a special paint colorway, so aptly named El Diablo Crimson Red with El Diablo Dark Metallic Red. In addition to the special colorway, this FXRST comes equipped with a Bluetooth speaker pod system on the inside of the fairing that comes straight out of the Harley P&A catalog. If it looks familiar, it is. It's the FXRST. Just drop the L and add paint and sound and bam, you got an icon. Harley stylists state the El Diablo is a nod to the 1983 FXRT Sport Glide, which was launched under a similar paint scheme, a paint scheme that was taken straight from the pages of Better Homes and Gardens magazine of the time, the tomato red appliance package that was all the rage in the day. It's Stranger Things for the motorcycle community. Of all the bikes in Harley's past to choose an icon model from, they chose this. I'd be just as impressed if they repackaged the Iron 883 and released an icon version of it. Slap some special paint on it, up the price a few grand, and bam, it's an icon. Wait, they did that last year with the Snake Venom paint scheme. Charged more for the colorway too. I digress. Though if my 2021 Iron 883 was released as an icon, it would have added $6,000 more to the price. At $27,999 plus fees, the FXRST icon variant is $6,250 more than the MSRP of the black FXLRST. Now let me be clear, this is an MSRP that is a fantasy price because no dealer is selling them for MSRP. The S stands for suggested, and the dealers across the country are clearly not taking this suggestion. Harley's grasping at low-lying fruit for a cash grab, piggybacking on the popularity of the FXLRST demand in 2022 and creating a submodel within the model and pocketing 50% more profit on the difference, and the dealers are taking it from there with additional fees based on its scarcity of limited production to 1,500 models worldwide, which works out to be about one per dealer allocation. At $999, the P&A Bluetooth speaker pod leaves $5,250 as the retail upcharge for a semi-custom paint. I mean, you'll share this paint scheme with 1,500 others, so it's not really custom. As an owner of two special limited run paint scheme bikes, I realize the extra value they bring in the NADA price book, usually $2,000 to $3,000 more for special models. But typically, there's more to a special model than just paint. So this year's icon isn't that special. Aside from the special price markup and the speaker pod with the Rockford Fosgate branding, the FXLRST Gold Rush this year is a boom in profit for dealers and the motor company. In the spring, I attempted to trade in my Iron 883 with its special limited paint scheme toward an FXLRST. Due to the scarcity of the model, my dealer reneged on its promise of providing full equity value towards my trade because it wasn't an in-stock model. I had to choose what they had in stock in order to get full equity of my trade-in, which ended up being a slew of gunship FXLRSs. If I was going to get a lowrider S, it would be the ST, and in black. Black is badass. Gray, not so much. I even went to the other dealer in my area. After evaluating my 2,000 mile at the time trade-in, they lowballed the trade-in value. However, both dealers wanted to upcharge me $10,000 above MSRP for the pleasure of ordering an FXLRST. Needless to say, I walked away from that investment, and I don't feel the slightest bit of remorse. To me, these are toys, not liabilities. The day they become liabilities is the day I'll buy a Royal Enfield. It's no secret Harley CEO is targeting profits and margins. His reports during the quarterly stockholder earnings sessions include declining sales volume. However, increases in gross margin are in the low double digits per bike sold. That means more profit to them to offset the lower sales numbers. Shareholders are happy. The Icon series represents additional gross margins per bike sold over that of the standard model. That's the Hardwired Strategy. It was implemented a few years ago. Less fluff in the line, just bikes most consumers and brand loyalists want to buy. Here's Brad Richards, VP of Styling.
Icon's collection is really part of our Hardwire, the corporate strategy right now. We're trying to create as much desirability with our products as possible. One of the ways that we can do that is to really, take a model that's very popular like Lowrider ST and then do something to it that makes it like crazy popular, like really create the I have to have that motorcycle.
It's a cash grab, and this time it's going to flop. Last year's release was targeted to those kids from the late 60s whose dad rode FLH shovelheads. Now in their mid-60s, those kids ate up the revival. However, us kids from the 80s whose dads may have owned a 1983 to 1986 FXRT Sport Glide or Sport Glide Deluxe, note the top case and lower fairing that came with the Deluxe model, we are not our dads. Some of us like technology. Some of us prefer the simplicity of a stripped-down bobber. We're also not in the same financial position as the revival buyers. There's a solid 10 to 15 year difference in age range, and that's a huge income earning period of time for us. Plus back then and still now, we look at the FXRT in the crimson red colorway and recall the Reeboks and dad jeans that went along with that buyer, and we'd rather be riding something more in line with the era we missed, a chopper from the 70s, or perhaps that fat boy from the Terminator movie. However, that isn't practical because once we come to our senses, we realize the wife needs to come along with us to the poker runs and the day trips to the wineries. And we need storage for our bottles of Merlot, and a bagger riding on a better touring chassis with all its comforts makes more sense to us. Unless we play the mental masturbation game of tricking ourselves into thinking we'll be off-roading and camping at some point. So then we'll purchase a Pan America, something far removed from our dad's 80s bike with more exciting extracurricular and Puritan prospects. And for only 20 grand, 150 horsepower, why not? Our Mustangs, Camaros, and SUVs have evolved. Why can't our motorcycle riding experience evolve as well?
Besides, low desirability to overpay for a dad jeans Supreme steed. What I'm saying here is that the FXRST is not an FXR. It's not even a conjuring of the FXR. It relates only to the FXR in that the paint scheme is similar and there's a fairing. But the LRST in an FXRST package is on its own. It's its own bike and far removed from an FXR chassis the way it performs, as it should be. The FXRST and the FXLRST is its own bike, its own history. It starts now, and maybe it'll be an icon in 30 years. Only time will tell. The FXRST is no FXR, and an FXR is no icon in Harley Davidson's history.
The FXRT was a settled upon solution stemming from the failed Nova project of the late 1970s, a time when AMF owned Harley Davidson, and engineers from Harley worked with Porsche to develop a whole bunch of water-cooled engine bikes on new frames, a huge departure from the air-cooled shovelhead engine of the day in an effort to beat Honda in the superbike engineering race. At the heart of the project lay top-secret engines to be developed in collaboration with Porsche that would have knocked much of the motorcycle world on its duff had they all been brought to production. Though technical specifics are a little sketchy even to this day, the line would have included modular liquid-cooled double overhead cam engines in the 400 and 500cc increment, a 60-degree V-twin displacing 400cc or 500cc, a V4 displacing 800cc or 1000cc, and a V6 displacing 1200cc or 1500cc. That project, though, would trickle into the air-cooled engine being developed at the time to replace the shovelhead. Nova's developments would allow use of common bore and stroke dimensions, would enable some of the common components such as pistons, connecting rods, rings, and so on across the line, but would have been targeted for about 135 horsepower from the top-of-the-line models. Each version would include counterbalancers. Not only would the Nova engines be liquid-cooled, radical chassis and bodywork design would have moved the fuel tank under the seat, and the radiator would lie flat under the seat behind the engine with high-flow air intake built into the all-new wind tunnel designed mounted fairing.
At the same time, Harley was working on an air-cooled engine update to the shovelhead using some of the information gained in the Nova project, the Evolution engine.
Now, the Nova project never produced any fruit. However, that technology did trickle in to the Evolution engine. That technology trickled into Buell, trickled into the FXR. Once a new CEO took over at AMF in late 1980, and with a looming buyback and separation from AMF just around the corner, the group at Harley made a decision. With 2 more years R&D remaining before the launch, they realized they couldn't beat Honda to the market. They put their limited budget to complete the design of the Evolution engine and create Harley-centric sport cruiser called the FXR. In 1982, the ad copy said the new FXR Superglide 2 was a Harley Davidson that would separate the men from the boys. The implication being that the boys were riding foreign motorcycles, and the FXR promised to deliver handling to rival sporty bikes from overseas and the potent performance of an American V-twin. 35 years later, there are still riders who claim the FXR was the best motorcycle Harley ever built. The FXR is considered one of the best Harleys on the road, but this wasn't always the case. In fact, it was first launched in 1982. People seem to consider it too Japanese. To die-hard Harley fans, it felt much like riding a Honda or a Yamaha. The fact was that the FXR was designed to challenge the foreign bikes that were slowly gaining a significant market share. The foreign bikes were sportier, rode better, and offered better ride and comfort. In comparison, most Harleys were rumbling beasts that would carry on for miles but didn't offer similar efficient handling. The FXR changed that, offered a better steady riding and delivered great handling. It was a better built bike, but riding it wasn't a quintessential Harley experience. This was a Harley looking towards the future and evolving. Overall, the FXR was their first step towards delivering the better bikes we enjoy today, thanks to developments from the Nova project. The first FXRs were released in 1981 and were called 1982 models, and ran the shovelhead engine and was a chain-driven final drive. There were two bikes that were released, the FXR Superglide 2, which had lace wheels, and the FXRS, with a two-tone paint and cast wheels. Realizing the potential of the FXR, they immediately started to build on the platform. In the years that followed, Harley released several distinctive bikes under the FXR banner with the Evolution engine. By the time the company ventured into 1990, it had deviated considerably from its original intention of bringing a sport Harley to market. This caused the sales to drop and the die-hard FXR fans to turn away in disappointment. I think that sales from the original FXR slipped pretty quickly, said former Harley Davidson FXR team and later CVO team designer Bob Leroy. So we kept the volume going by adding models, Bob said, but by the late 80s the company realized that the FXR was not what the market wanted. Maybe it felt too much like an import competition. That's when we went to work on the Dyna. Harley then shifted focus to the Dyna and placed the FXR on the shelf. In fact, one past owner lauded on an HD forum how he got a great deal on a leftover FXRT model, while folks were willing to pay over MSRP for the hot new Softail models of the time. But since the introduction of the FXR in 1981 and Harley's 1995 discontinuation of the model, those early champions of the FXR have not stopped raving about the superior qualities of the bike, and they've passed that information down to the next generations. Now, as us children of the 80s approach middle age and acquire the financial stability that typically comes with it, many remember the FXRs their fathers rode. We remember FXRs in 80s movies and TV shows stuffed to the gills with motorcycle chases. As an extension of the club bike scene ignited by Sons of Anarchy, custom builders were taking the next step beyond the quarter fairing and retrofitting the FXRP and FXRT fairings onto these builds. The fairings of these models, if untouched and unmolested with original paint, can sell for thousands of dollars. Police FXRs were so desirable a few years back that many sold for upwards of $15,000 on the used market. Similar price to many panheads and early shovelheads, motorcycles which only a few years ago would have been vastly more valuable than a bike outfitted with an Evo engine. But the FXR made this dramatic comeback around 2010-2012. But that trend ended at the start of 2019 when Harley dropped the Dyna line. Now you can get a tricked out Dyna with an FXRT or FXRP fairing for under $15K. The vibe at the end of 2018, early 2019 changed. Yeah, sure, some builds carried over into 2019 and 2020, but by 2019 the concept peaked, and now as of late we're seeing performance baggers with touring capabilities on one side of the spectrum, and then a push towards minimalism on the other side of the spectrum with stripped down bobbers made from Sportsters, Dynas, and Softails of the 90s and 2000s. As shovelhead prices begin to bloat, FXR finds are becoming a bit more scarce. What Harley doesn't realize is that bike builders don't buy icon models or new bikes unless it's a Softail standard to build upon. Builders like nostalgia. Are there enough Gen Xers out there with deep pockets to buy an El Diablo at $37,000 plus? Besides, the national sales shift for all motorcycle brands is ADV bikes these days, so dads can disappear into the wilderness that is a Starbucks near the house. Gotta be back by 4 to cut that grass, so you can't go far.
So as per usual, once a big brand gets involved with the production model, the trend is over. Kind of like how hair metal died in 1992. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the brand, and I think the FXRST is an exciting model. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below if you agree with me that the El Diablo is a little bit too rich for the current market. Are you disheartened by the extra dealer fees dealers are piling on these days? And what about the fact that they chose not to copy the Icon model off the Deluxe of 1986 with the lower fairings and top box to make it a true sport tour? Thanks for coming along. I'm Kenny Quest. We'll see you next time. But wait, there's more.
I think Harley needs to pay more attention to what its customer base really wants instead of fooling around with specials and icon derivatives of existing models. If you'd like to know my 3 recommendations for brand new model bikes I think would be big sellers that Harley should make, watch my next video. Click the box here and I'll see you on the next one.